Hello, everyone. I'm back with an update on our school system, specifically geared towards the high school. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined again by Mr. Mahoney, the principal of Winchester High School. He provided us with insights about the high school's hybrid model earlier in the fall, and he's back to give us an update. Thank you, Mr. Mahoney, for joining me today. Let's dive right into the questions.
Thank
How
you, Aria.
effective?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course, of course. How effective do you believe the hybrid model for WHS has been, and are you happy with how it's going so far?
Um, those are tough questions to answer. So, in terms of effectiveness, I think we are in a good place, especially if we look at other schools around us. So, I have a difficult time answering questions around effectiveness or success because I have high standards, just like everybody else in Winchester. My expectation is that I want us to have the best program and the best version of whatever model is out there. So if I were to look at internally, I think we're fairly effective. I think it's working for a large percentage of kids. I think kids are happy to be back in school, physically in school and interacting with teachers. So that
Definitely.
right there says that it's effective. Because towns around us, and without listing names, but there's many towns around us who are not in school. They haven't been able to be in school all year, or be able to stay in school because of COVID numbers or because of their model or what's happening in their town. So in regards to effectiveness for getting kids into school, getting them back into a program of learning, interacting with teachers, and getting as normal as possible without pushing on the fence too much in terms of safety, I think we're highly effective. It's not perfect, but I think we're doing a fairly good job, and I'm just happy to see kids live and in person again.
I couldn't agree more, and it's really nice to be seeing teachers again. Definitely, that last half of the year was tough because uh, I mean, in-person learning is, I feel like, is the best way to go. So
You know,
yeah,
the I think we online learning is part of our current environment. It's been
yeah,
around for a little while. It's probably a wave of the future, but at the while we're in the living times now, being in school, having a routine, having structure, having a roadmap to follow, I think is still proving to be definitely the stronger of the two options.
yes. Um, okay, and would you mind just touching on what you believe has been like the greatest difficulties of this transition, for example, from last year to this year, specifically for you as an administrator?
That's a long question. So the difficulties are they change day to day. I think our compulsion to be all things to all people can be a major difficulty. We want every kid to have the perfect schedule, the perfect example to learn from, the perfect sporting environment, the perfect musical environment, and we're not capable of offering the best. And that's so I struggle with. But we're always kind of trying to tweak and make adjustments where we can. So we're also, when we created the schedule, we were asked to basically make at least two different schools, and some look at it as three different schools with the same amount of staff, with the same amount of funds. And the central office, Dr. Evans, has been great about providing as much as she is capable of providing. Same with the school committee; they've done a great job of organizing for us. But at the end of the day, there's just so many pieces of the pie to go around. So in order to create a schedule for 1,400 students, some of them are remote, some of them are on the B cohort, some are on the A cohort, and meet everybody's needs, that's been really the most difficult task for us to follow, as well as working with staff. I mean, staff was also at home all last spring, and they had to make major adjustments to their life, and they're continuing to make major adjustments to their life. So staff with young kids, while Winchester High School is staying hybrid, and we've been able to maintain throughout. If you're in North Reading, if you're in Woburn, if you're in other towns that have gone in and out a little bit, well, you have to take care of your staff, and your staff has to take care of their children, has to take care of their families, and it's very difficult for us to balance our professional life and our personal life while we're still focusing on our students. So it's been a challenge on both sides of trying to meet the needs of every student as well as meet the need of all of our staff members as well.
Hmm. And I can only imagine, because if the students find it difficult, I mean, the staff, which have families to support and to raise children to raise, they must find it. I mean, I applaud them for doing what they do.
I can tell
Um,
you, when I spoke to you in eighth grade at the eighth grade orientation, this
yeah.
gray hair was not there. That's a year and a half right there.
All right. Well, it suits you well. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks.
Um, so what do you think you're most worried about going into the holiday season? Because I know there are risks about COVID cases going up and things like that. So, what is like the main things that you're worrying about?
You know, um, part of the difficulties is trying not to let the things you can't control you.
Mhm.
I can't control people traveling. I can't control siblings coming back from colleges. I can't control staff deciding to go to their own vacation homes. No matter what the governor says, no matter what the superintendent or myself say, people are going to do what they're going to do, and that's a concern. But we also want people to have a life and have family experiences, and there's really no one size fits all rule. So my concern is the same that we had right before we opened school. What are students going to do in terms of wearing masks? What are they going to do in terms of making good decisions? It was the same on Halloween. What are students going to do on Halloween night? It's the same over Thanksgiving break. Will people be traveling? Will they be making family decisions? Or will they be sacrificing for a little while longer in order to get to the goal of staying in school, keeping the building open, and people being safe? So the same thing is, with the holiday break coming up. Some people celebrate the holidays, some people don't. Some people celebrate this holiday that's more religious than others, and people have choices, or people think they have choices, and the governor might say otherwise. But what are they going to do in order to keep the family safe and to keep the school open? And people have to make their own decisions and be honest about what they want to do. So my concern is kind of are people traveling? Are people going to quarantine? Are they going to give into peer or social pressure and have people over when they know that they shouldn't? So the good news is, students, the senior class in August, September, when we were about to open, they have a tradition, and a lot of the senior leaders stepped up and said, you know what, we're not going to do that this year. And I couldn't have been prouder. It's a difficult decision for a teenager to say we're not going to have we're not going to have a social gathering because it's not the right thing to do. They did the same thing on Halloween. They obviously there's choices out there. Some people aren't making great decisions, but the vast majority of kids said no, this isn't. It's not worth it. The immediate gratification of going out and seeing people versus being able to get as much of an education as possible and reach my long-term goals it's not worth going out. Thanksgiving was not as bad as it could have been. It wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad. And we had a number of people in quarantine, and some people test positive because of people that they interacted with outside of the social circle. But it wasn't the falling sky is falling moment.
Mm-hmm.
The holiday break, though, we're off for a lot longer, and so there's more opportunities, there's more freedom, there's more choice, and people are going to have to make some tough decisions. And I want you to be able to see your older siblings. Like if older siblings are back from college, of course, you don't want them to have to stay in the basement for 10 days. You shouldn't have to wear a mask in your house. But the reality is college campuses are having a difficult time keeping kids healthy. I want you to be able to see your grandparents and see your loved ones, but that's what's safe for your grandparents and loved ones. And I would love to travel to New Hampshire to see my parents, but I'm not going to travel to North Conway where my parents live full time. I'm not going to travel and see them and then quarantine for 10 days. So, there's other ways around it. There's FaceTime. There's all sorts of different technologies, but it's not the same. It's not nearly as good.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the house with your nucleus can grind on you at a level as well. People need their freedom and their space. I'm an independent person, and I've taken to taking a walk at least once a day, besides normal exercise. I'm just going to go for a 15 to 20-minute walk for the peace and quiet of being outside. So that is a big concern of mine. It's been a repeated concern. We've done a pretty good job with it. In some respects, we've done a great job, but the holiday season is the most difficult time to make these decisions.
I can only imagine, and I really hope that it turns out something like it did of Halloween, because I think Halloween especially, although it was only one day, we did a really good job of handling it, and I was really happy to see that there were many people who decided that it wasn't worth it to go out, and yeah. So I know it was rumored that there would be changes made between semester 1 and semester 2 for the
Mhm.
hybrid model, and I was just curious if you'd like to address these rumors and potentially
Sure.
share any ideas you had, like you or the education system department that's working on it at this time may had for changes between semester 1 and semester 2.
So I'm always fascinated with the rumors. We're always saying the door's open, come on in, but people hear rumors and they run with them. And you're coming directly to source, so I appreciate and I respect that, and you're doing the right thing. So we are looking at everything and conversations about what can we do better. Not necessarily blow up the schedule because that's probably too difficult. Not necessarily have kids back to the building more because that might not be safe. But are there ways to provide more opportunities for kids in different areas? Can we do small tweaks of say have if your last name begins with R, you're not supposed to be in the building on Monday and Tuesday. But if you needed extra help, could we allow you to come into school before the building opened,
Mhm.
before 9:15, to get extra help from a teacher and then leave? Like use a certain door so we know that environment is not being mixed. And the same thing after school. Can we explore that? Can we explore maybe the AP classes going synchronous because AP is a prescribed curriculum and
Mhm.
there's an endpoint. Now, our regular curriculum is prescribed by the state, but there's no specific endpoint. If we don't get to the number 21st and 22nd part of the, overall part of the curriculum by the end of the year, we know we can add that on to the next class the next year. We can't do that in AP. And we know that AP is moving really slow. And right now, the College Board hasn't really changed their expectations for the AP test. So is there a way for us to give those kids more education? Are there ways to get special ed kids more opportunities in person without, again, mixing the cohorts? So there's everything's on the table, and yet we're not in a big hurry either because it goes back to disrupting lives. People are in a routine, and routine's important. And students like routine, no matter, they might not say this, but the routine is good for most people. We know our staff has a routine with their childcare and their lives as well. So how much time do we need in order to make any changes is really determined on the size of the change and whether it's going to give us the also the biggest impact or not. So it's when I say everything's on the table, like we're not looking to blow up the schedule. We're not looking to say, we're going to have kids in on Wednesday. That's on the table, but I don't know if we're able to actually be able to do that. We don't know if that's safe. There's talk about one of the models that we proposed this summer was, would it be better for kids to come on Monday and Thursday and Tuesday and Friday? Because right now, like, you're off school for 7 days. Right. And it's very difficult to be in a routine when you only have 2 days of school and then a huge chunk of time off. Even though you have remote classes and you have expectations of when to learn, time management is difficult for adults, let alone teenagers. Mm-hmm. So, or if students are struggling because of time management or executive functioning, there's no way for them to really improve upon that while they're not with us. So, that's a discussion that we've had. We had a discussion at a recent faculty meeting among staff, because I think it's imperative that ideas come from the staff because they are impacted and their lives outside of school are impacted. And also we have a lot of people on our staff, as I'm sure you'll agree. So myself and the 2 assistant principals can't be coming up with every idea on our own. We're out of ideas at this point. We'd rather have it come from the staff, come organically, and then change happens a little bit easier that way as well. But at the end of the day, we might find ourselves making no changes because of a million reasons, whether the software can handle it, whether we have the capacity, whether it's safe, and a million reasons attached to those. We're still offering a comparatively great education. It's just not what we're used to. We might say we're not going to do anything in semester 2 at the start of semester 2, but maybe quarter 4, if vaccinations are going out and they're becoming more widely spread, and the U.S. government has a good platform for distributing vaccinations and people are getting it, then maybe quarter 4 looks differently than quarter 3. But really, nothing's etched in stone. Everything's on the table. What can we do? We don't have a specific answer, but we're examining it. But we're not setting expectations either.
Okay. And
we're certainly not committing to anything.
Right. And this next question is just off the top of my head. It's oddly specific, but would you mind touching upon it? I know you briefly mentioned something, but would you mind touching upon what might happen to Wednesdays? Because I know there's a lot of back and forth about them, whether remote is the right way to go, maybe extend the remote classes or just go to school, something like that.
So Wednesdays have become an interesting sticky wicket with the staff. We asked the staff, like, we're hearing Wednesdays are hard. We're hearing it's a sprint. We're hearing it's a grind.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do a survey, and some people will be like, Wednesdays are the worst. We need, it's too much. We're burning out. And I hear that. But then other people come back and be like, don't touch Wednesdays. Wednesdays are fine. Wednesdays are working. That's our meeting time. So for special education, 90% of our meetings are happening on Wednesday afternoons.
Right.
And we also don't have any other opportunity for whole classes to get together. So I'm sure you're, Thursday, Friday, you're with your cohort, but you don't get to see the kids from the Monday, Tuesday cohort at all.
Right.
So there's a value to that. So we've talked about Wednesdays, but if we're able to fix it or not, like fix it as an opinion, I guess, because some people are like, Wednesdays are fine as is.
Right.
Other people are burning out, and how do we help people that are burnt out without changing? I'm not sure we have the answer to that. And I sit on a group of league principals for the whole Middlesex League, and we meet once every 2 weeks or so. It was more often in the spring, and it's real beneficial to hear what they're thinking about, what they're dealing with. And there's not a lot of answers out because we spend all summer and part of the spring planning this model, figuring out all the angles, trying to make improvements everywhere. And now thinking about pivoting is, for me, part of me gets excited about that because I like to tinker, I like to make improvements. But another part of me has no new ideas, has nothing, and kind of like my cohort of principals sort of feels the same way. I don't know how much more we should do. Some of it's like drywall. If you've ever done any drywall or plastering, the more you touch it, the worse it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. And I think
there's no good answers.
Right. And I think for that reason, it's important that hopefully the town hears this. We all stay patient as a whole because everyone is working through this together. I mean, if you'd like to put it this way, we're all kind of going through a difficult time, not just one of us. So think about it as a team rather than an individual sport.
A good phrase I heard is we're all in the same storm. We're just in different boats. So your needs might not be my needs, might not be somebody else's needs. We're all dealing with this together. We're just in different boats in the same storm.
That's a great way to say it. I really like that. I know this is, I mean, for some people it's more major than others, but do you want to touch on for mask breaks, and because it's the winter is coming, it might be more difficult to have mask breaks outside as it might get too cold. So what are your ideas?
Is it going to get too cold? We're hardy New Englanders. We had our tents set up for a few months, and they really aren't rated for heavy amounts of snow. So we had to take the tents down. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if kids want to stand outside, so mask breaks are going to maintain, we're not going to change them.
Right.
Kid needs a mask break, go outside. Obviously have a jacket. We still see kids come, it's December, it's mid-December, and kids are rolling to school without jackets on. Some kids are in shorts. So again, making a perfect environment is not necessarily something we're looking to do. If you need a mask break and it's in between class, pop outside like you're able to in the front of the building and the side of the building and have your mask break. If it's too cold for you, then you got to bundle up. You got to know that you don't like the cold. And we definitely have plenty, we have plenty of kids without jackets, but like bring a jacket, plan ahead, know that you need a mask break, and budget your time and prepare a little bit better. We're not going to do mask breaks inside. We do the cafeteria. So mask breaks might have been one of those things that are slightly overrated for high school kids. Mm-hmm. We have kids that take them, but not the vast majority, and not even a significant part of the minority really takes a break. Yeah. Some kids are going outside, but if you think about, we have like 650 kids in school on a given day. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see more than 20 kids outside in between periods.
Right.
You get the cafeteria, and the freshmen and sophomores are able to go outside as well. So we've had, I think it's something that we're really not investigating too much further. We want to treat high school kids like young adults, where they can make their own decisions, and a student raising their hand asking for mask break is totally allowed. A student needing a mask break in between classes is totally allowed. If it gets too cold for you,
well,
we're hardy New Englanders. You got to go outside.
Mhm. Right, and rightfully so. And I mean, out of all of this, I know it's really hard and stuff. Do you think there's a silver lining to this whole model that you'd like to quickly throw in there?
Um, I think I think people love the small class size,
Hmm.
and that's already like I'm looking at next year. I'm like, oh, that's not something we're going to be able to maintain 8 kids
Yeah.
in a classroom. But it's like a
It
private
feels like
school.
private school. It's awesome. Like,
It is. It's
yeah.
better than most private schools. I mean, it's really like a boarding school.
Right.
Um, but it's not something we'll be able to maintain. So it helps us in terms of education for this year. Um, I think the creative use of technology, like we're doing right now, we wouldn't have done this a year and a half ago.
Definitely.
How teachers have also come up with new ideas, new ways to have collaboration for students. I was in a teacher's classroom yesterday, and they were doing like a group review sheet, but the teacher had just a Google Doc on the whiteboard, and everybody had their devices, and that's not something we had, even though we're a BYOD school. We had some difficulty getting all kids to about bringing their devices, and we still have kids that have to borrow a Chromebook, but very few comparatively to other years.
Hmm.
So they were putting in their ideas for what should be on the review sheet, and everybody was contributing and collaborating. They weren't talking, they were talking a little bit out loud, but they weren't doing small group collaboration, and they were sharing, and it was visual, and it was a really creative way to do a traditional let's create a review sheet together. So I think the silver linings are the use of technology, the pivot that a lot of teachers have had on mindset, on grading, on what type of assignments have value, the use of much less paper. Love to see that we're not paperless by any stretch, but we're using dramatically less paper,
Definitely.
and student preparation with their technology, I think, has really helped. So there's silver linings for sure.
Hmm.
It'd be a shame to lose some of the ideas and growth that we've had this year.
Right. Yeah. So I know that locally there's been a like a testing center. You could go get yourself COVID tested. I believe it's in the Jenk Center. Please correct me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong. Um, do you believe that eventually, perhaps in a month, maybe 2 months, WHS is going to have their own testing machines, like maybe rapid testing machines on campus?
I don't see that happening. I think we're one of the few towns in the Commonwealth that was able to have the free testing for staff and town and community members. I think that was great. That was at the Jenk Center, and people did avail themselves of it. Community-wise, our numbers went up much higher, but
Mhm.
staff-wise, our numbers are exactly the same. It was
That's
great.
great.
So, like again, for staff confidence, for staff comfort, they're able to say like, "Oh, okay, there is no school spread. Knock on
Right.
wood, salt over the shoulder." We've been great about that, but community sees that like their numbers are much higher in the community than previously anticipated. I don't see us having any rapid testing set up on campus for students on a daily basis. It's just wildly expensive and not part of
Right.
the budget. Even with money from the state, it's
Hmm.
not something that we would be able to fund on if it was even split.
Makes
So
sense.
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. And then would you like to again touch upon the emotional toll that you've noticed this entire pandemic and specifically the hybrid model maybe has had on both staff members, which I'm sure you're more familiar with, and maybe even students if you know?
I think I think you probably agree with me. It's different for every kid. It's different for every
Mhm.
staff member. You
Definitely.
you you know you've got a good portion of kids that are fine, that are just going along. They're chugging along. They're like, this is what it is. This is what it's going to be for a while. I recognize it, and I'm going to take what I can get. You've got some staff and some kids that really struggle with it. They struggle with the change. They struggle with the emotional and the unknowns. They struggle with the anxiety of, am I safe? And that's definitely fair and needs to be addressed and talked about. And then you get people that or like some remote students or some students that are working remotely or have some remote classes that are doing exponentially better than they did if they were in the regular school environment. That's
Right.
one of those interesting things that we've seen last year and particularly this year. Some students who might not have been comfortable in a classic school environment are now at home learning online, and that's working for them better than actually coming into the building. Not every case is there's kids that are definitely checked out and disappearing on us, although we try to track them down as best as we can. It's it's just really different for every student. You know, I try to think of myself as a student sometimes of what I would be experiencing, like being kind of like a Joe average student. And I'd probably be struggling with some of the stay at home stuff more than the coming to school stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just me. Some friends of mine would love being at home all the time.
Mhm.
So it's not a necessarily something that we can fix because again, it's trying to be all things to all people.
Mhm.
Why don't you? I mean, you're in school.
Right.
What do you notice? What do you see? What do your like cohort of friends feel?
Well, as for me specifically, or all of my friends actually really enjoy the hybrid model, and for the resources that we have in the situation that we're in, we don't really see a better way we could do it. And all of our teachers, we love all of our teachers and the way they're handling it. I think for me, I kind of fluctuate. Like there are those days where it's like, so much work to do at home, and in the beginning, it was definitely difficult for me to take being at home at like at noon on a Monday and to be in like that mindset of school, but I'm at home at the same time. So it confused me in the beginning, but I eventually got used to it, and I've really been enjoying the hybrid model, and I really hope and pray that, well, one, there's a vaccine, so maybe we can, like maybe quarter 3, quarter 4, we can maybe develop a, maybe like I don't know, maybe Wednesdays we can go into school, something like that, or if that's not even possible, just the town tries to stay safe, especially during this holiday break, because it's going to be even more difficult to do it full remote. And so I just really don't want to see that happening.
Agreed. I think it's it's different for every person, every household. And we have kids that are siblings. One sibling's doing great, one sibling's struggling. It's really it's a personalized environment.
Hmm. Hmm. And then finally, how effective has the mental health services? I think I asked you a question, but I knew we're going to continue doing this in the last interview. So I just wanted an update. How effective has the mental health services been provided by the school? Like how effective has it been, and how readily accessible have they been in helping students in a timely fashion?
I think the world of the staff. They with every kid that they're working with is there's a you know they care about every single kid that's in front of them. It's reaching out to the kids that aren't in front of them that can be difficult. They are working around the clock trying to work with kids and trying to help them make adjustments. I mean, one of the misunderstandings of mental health services in a public school is that our mental health providers are actually there to help you access the curriculum. They're
Mhm.
not a personal therapist. They're not a private therapist, but they do tend to act like one for a lot of students. But
Yeah.
their purpose is to help you access the curriculum and continue to learn. So they do a lot more than what they're supposed to be doing, but that's the background, and I commend them for it. Um, but like with any mental health service, like unless we find the kid and we say you need to go see this person, it's very difficult to know who needs it or who's going to avail themselves of it. Very
Right.
few teenagers will say, "Oh, I want to go see this person," even though I've never had a relationship with them and I've never been to see a therapist or a social worker. It's hard to convince a teenager or an adult that they should be seeking out help.
Right.
So the providers that we have are excellent. They've done a great job with the students in front of them. I'm sure there's some kids that could go with more services and more support or any level of service and support, but finding them is difficult. And then also having them avail themselves of it is difficult.
Right. Right. Right.
We're set
And
up well. We have good resources, but
mhm.
again, you have to ask for the help
Right.
because we force it on you, and we do sometimes. But
Yeah.
it's difficult for a kid to open up if they're being told to go to a certain staff member to go see them.
Yeah. And it really touches on how we just have to, I mean, this is a learning point for all of us as students, because I think by the end of this pandemic, almost all of us are going to have matured a lot, because we're more self-aware. We know what we need. We know what others need, or we know what we need to do in order to help others, and it's just our overall awareness has gone up, which might play into our overall maturity. So,
There's very few life-changing events. We can say something's life-changing,
yeah,
but it's probably life-shifting, life-altering a little bit. But like
yeah,
this is a dramatic change in your life that you'll never forget,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
myself included. This is not an environment that I ever pictured myself being, trying to lead from.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. Definitely. But I mean, I think we're going to reflect upon it, and I mean, I can imagine us reflecting upon it and being proud of what we did and like how we were able to handle it. So, I guess that really wraps it up. Thank you, Mr. Mahoney, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure the viewers do as well. And I hope you have a very safe and enjoyable holiday break. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask, would you like to add any parting thoughts?
well, for my family, we're gonna do what we did in Thanksgiving, and we're gonna hang out in the house and get outside for exercise. But pretty much just the nucleus, the four of us, hunkering down and making a lot of phone calls, a lot of some family Zooms, some long distance European Zooms and Zooms in China, and um, you know, just connect with as many people digitally as possible and send our well wishes. I think I'm still proud of the work that we're doing at Winchester High School for sure. Deeply proud that we're able to stay open and that we were able to open up to begin with. I recognize that there's shortcomings in everything that we're doing. There's shortcomings in everything that we were doing previously too. So thank you for the trust in me. Thank you for the trust in the staff. We certainly have the best interests of the students in the town in our forethoughts all the time. But what we can do, we'll see.
All right. Well,
Let's get to June. Let's
yeah, thank you.
get to
Thank
let's
you
get a
so much.
vaccine. Let's get to June. Those are the goals.
All righty.